Hi everyone, welcome
Hey,
to
y'all.
the final session.
Woohoo.
Woo! The Leader Summit. Here we are. I'm give a moment for
Little new
everyone
twinkle.
to filter in. I don't have that link. If someone of my teammates here has it about land acknowledgement. So as we wait for people to filter in, I know we know each other very well, but if you want to put it in the chat, where you're calling in from, your name, your chapter or working group or whatever slow food affiliation you have, and your indigenous people's land acknowledgement. We can put that in the chat while we give people 1 or 2 minutes to filter in situate. So we'd love to hear where everyone's coming from. And we'll get started in 2 minutes, folks.
Hey, Bud, guess what?
What?
Gordon fell on his face.
What's that? I didn't hear that. I don't know if anyone else heard that. I didn't hear that.
The fun of live streaming.
I know.
You never know what's gonna happen.
So thank you for entering that in. We'll start in 1 minute and get going with stepping forward into the future or present future of 2022 together as Slow Food. Bum, bum, bum. Sorry, also making some last minute changes. All right, folks, thank you for putting your introductions into the chat. It's always fun to see where people are calling in from. I am currently in Toronto, Canada, which is Anishinaabe land. I am here, make sure my mom is going to spend Chinese New Year with her siblings. So I'm really excited for that. It's a huge Hong Kong Chinese population here. So it's like really good food and really fun celebrations. I'm happy that she can be here. And don't travel internationally if you don't have to. Oh my gosh, it is a pain. So avoid it if you can. But happy to see everyone. We wanted to end, or not end, transition into our year after the Leader Summit with the last session to kind of look forward and have like a discussion together, do a couple of jam boards. I know like sometimes we get real nerdy of our tech, but jam boards is really fun because it's something that we can all see together and visualize together, and then we can talk about it. But we know that many of you have been to several meetings already for the Leader Summit, and we don't want it to be repetitive, but we do want to have a moment where we can reconfirm what we're all excited about and how we're all going to work together. And so the format for today, to do that, we're going to do, and please follow as much or as little as you want, but what we're going to do is have 2 moments where we can focus on two major areas of work in Slow Food. The first one being headed, in our national office by Dan and Mara, who are here, is kind of the network leadership portion and the programming portion. And the second area of major focus is headed by Brian about our marketing and communications that we're going to do this year. And we know that's important for all of us, so what we want to do is give us chance for staff to introduce that, to say, from being national staff, having the, privilege and mandate to kind of, be paid and be leaders in this realm, what they're exactly, they can spend a lot of time on this, right? What are they excited about? What are they like, just, we went through a lot of presentations this week, but it's a chance for us too, and for all of you to kind of just speak from the heart, speak from like, after all this planning, I'm just really jazzed to do XYZ, and looking forward to XYZ in more, facilitator language. This is intention setting. What are our intentions for 2022? And so as we talk about intentions, what we're excited about, we can also focus on what we're excited about doing together. And together you can take it any way you want. If you mean together as your chapter and as your local community, great. If you mean together as like you in the national office, you in the international community, you and whoever, take together however you mean it. But this is a moment for us to think about the future, hope for the future, and kind of talk about connections. As slow food is nothing without you all the people on the ground doing the work. And I would hazard a opinion that slow food is nothing unless we work together. So I'm hoping this is like a celebratory moment and a really fun moment to kind of discuss that. So again, the format is going to be in two sections: network and programming first, and then marketing. And so in each time, we're going to have the staff talk about what they're excited about. Then we're going to have a Jamboard. We're going to share the link with you all so you can start doing Post-it notes about what you're excited about. And then we can all just kind of like unmute as you feel like it and kind of shout out and share what you're excited about. And we can kind of have a quick informal discussion. And we're going to do that for network and programming, and then for marketing and comms. Honestly, too, if you still have questions, please, like, let's like, like bring them up now. And if we really want people to leave the session being like, it's the end of the Leader Summit, but it's not the end of our work by far. It's not the end of our collaboration by far. And the staff are definitely going to like reiterate all the upcoming opportunities, that we're going to try to design and host to have further collaboration on this level. So, but again, like, it's time to celebrate, but also please ask questions, like we're here. So, and for me personally, I just want to say it's been such a privilege to be working with this group. I am so utterly bummed that we're going to be talking about amazing things, and I won't really get to be part of it in the role I used to have. So thank you as a leaders to be having me, to deal with me, and I hope I haven't let people down too much, and I was there for you as much as I could be. It's been an amazing privilege to see leaders from across the country just doing such amazing work. So thank you for having me in this role. I don't plan on going far. I hope to join my local chapter, and I'll be around. Maybe I'll be part of the Leader Summit as a leader next year. So I'm excited. So, all right. Without further ado, we're going to jump into it. I'm going to hand the mic over to Dan and Mara to kind of kick us off to talk about what they're excited about, what their intentions are in their roles for 2022. And I have the Jamboard links, Mara and Dan, so when you're ready, I'll share it. So.
Great. And should I go ahead and share my screen? I can share the slides from my screen if we want to hop over into the deck.
Oh, yes, the deck.
Helpful?
I'm really sorry. Is that what you want to share? Because I can do that. I got the deck.
Oh, yeah, Felix, if you don't mind, that'd be great. Yeah.
Give me 10 seconds and I got it for you.
Sounds good. In the meantime, maybe Mara and I could introduce ourselves. I'm sure
Please.
Many of you have seen our faces throughout the Leader Summit, but just, one more time for the one time. I'm Dan Miller. I use she or they pronouns. I currently sit on staff as the EIJ strategist and will be transitioning in the next few months into more of a hybrid role that combines sort of Felix role and the EIJ role. I'm really excited for that transition. I think it's a natural step forward where EIJ can be more centered in the work that we're doing to engage the network, and also continue a lot of the really great work that Felix has laid out. So I'm excited to step into the role, and also, want to do well by Felix and the great legacy that he is leaving behind for all of us, and not for good. Surely he'll make an appearance in one way or another. So that's me, and I'm really excited to talk today a little bit about network engagement in EIJ and Mara. It's been great to work with Mara and kind of get to create more of a synergy between all of those things because they all really do blend together. So it's been great to do some mapping and articulating of those different connections between our programs, the what we do with the engagement and EIJ piece to how we do it. So Mara, did you want to say hi as well?
Sure thing. Mara Welton, she, her pronouns, Director of Programs for Slow Food USA, former chapter leader. So I have a lot of great understanding and empathy for what our chapter leaders are generally go through on a daily basis, trying to man the helm of all your chapters. I feel like I have a foot in both worlds a little bit. I'm still very, very deeply connected with my Slow Food Vermont chapter up here and guiding the new counselor. I was in the governor role. They're now going to be called regional counselors, and I'm guiding her in her journey as well. And to take on the staff role has been a new experience for me, but I'm so grateful to be so connected to all of you. And I'll just tease one of the things that I'm very excited about coming forward is getting to know all of the leaders that are so engaged in our network on a personal level, and really learn about what you're doing in your realms and how I can support you best with programming. So I am thrilled to be on this team, and I cannot wait to do more together this year.
Great, and I got a little feedback that my audio may be a little bit muffled. Let me know if this, is it okay? Can you all hear me decent? Okay. Let me know if it goes a little south. I'm struggling with some internet bandwidth. I just want to acknowledge that quote that was in the beginning of the slide about most effective power being decentralized. I think this is a common theme that you'll hopefully see not only in these goals that we're sharing with you across these departments, but hopefully you'll see that reflected in our national statute. And this is also when we talk about returning to the roots of slow food and grassroots organizing and protest and movement building. This is, I think, at the heart of that is how do we effectively share our power? How do we mobilize our network? And so this, I think, has been a guiding theme for all of us as we think a little bit about the goals for each of these departments and how they all come together. So with that, why don't we hop into some of these goals? So network engagement, I really wanted to give you all an overview of not only what Felix left behind and sort of those seeds that Felix planted and how we'll be carrying that over sort of into this 2022 year, but also kind of let you know how everything we're doing is layered, right? Like none of this really exists in a vacuum. It's all really layered and connected. What does that look like, and how can we better illustrate that all for you so that you know where to go within the network for what you need? So goal one is really to activate our network by creating more access points and connecting the dots. We've started talking about this in some of the conversations around the National Statute, right? We're moving from this governor framework to more of a refined counselor role that better embodies what governors were formerly governors, now counselors, were doing. And so they can be better connectors and be better weavers of our network. Another part of that is like newly defining our regions, right? Maybe there's some things about the current region structure that aren't working or that could be done a bit better. So let's really get into defining what those new regions may look like. The slides are jumping around a bit. There we go. Great, thanks. And then strengthening that regional collaboration with those counselors and with those newly defined regions with at least some quarterly calls. I think there might be other structures or touch points that we can create. This is kind of just a high level that we're thinking about right now that can really kind of help us, again, weave everything together. A second piece, and something that I think is really exciting because these are things that go directly into your back pockets as leaders, is building tools that support you all and also lighten our administrative lift, right? We talk a lot about the capacity of national office, and one thing we can do is give you all more of what you need. That way we can do more of what needs to get done to make our mission move and keep the network not only alive, but thriving and healthy. So we are going to be launching the chapter portal this year that will be preceded by a beta test. So the chapter portal will be where you as a chapter leader go to get all of your information, former chapter reports, info on tax filing. We're kind of in the process of deciding what's gonna live there, and you'll also interact with it too. So we'll ask you to add some of your own files and things that you've been using to manage your chapter to the portal to create sort of this online resource hub and help with a freer exchange of information between chapter to chapter. That way we can point you to those resources and take a little bit off of our plate of, connecting all the dots all the time. Another piece of that is creating some of these how-to guides for frequently asked questions. You all ask us a lot of questions, and we love to be there to support you and getting those questions answered. And for those things that we can direct you to a resource and a how-to guide, we certainly want to do that. For those other conversations that you need more of that hand-holding and more of that maybe one-on-one coaching, counseling, consulting support, we also want to be able to give you that. So how-to guides will hopefully point you in the right direction most of the time. And then, obviously we're still here for that other kind of support. And we're growing the network engagement team. We actually just made the job posting for our network success manager, and that'll be someone who will be coming in to support my role as well as Mara's role, and making sure that you all, are getting your emails answered, getting your questions answered, someone who can really just keep the steady flow and rhythm of chapter leadership flowing at all times. So really excited to have that additional capacity on our team. And I see Brian just dropped the job description in the chat. So check it out and point folks who may be great for that role our way, please. And the third is really that celebration, that joy piece, right? We talk about justice and joy. So really finding a way to celebrate people and their passions. So I think sometimes we end up as national office doing a lot of troubleshooting and problem solving. And we want to create a space, and we want to create a framework that allows us to be more in celebration of you and all the amazing things that you do. So how can we redefine what success looks like, not just for us as a national office, but for you as chapter leaders, and maybe even for our community action teams as well. We really want to create a framework and processes and structures that allow us to build healthy relationships first. We can't do this work if we're not first, we're people first. So focus on those relationships and the organizing and the doing and the producing and creating are things that can come sort of after that. So how can we give you tools to support that? I think about things like our code of conduct and community guidelines and things that sort of put us on that path. And last but not least, how can we use storytelling as a tool for articulating impact? This here is really, I think, where we're talking about changes to our chapter reporting. It's not always the best way to demonstrate what we're doing and what challenges we're facing and what successes we've had by filing necessarily a chapter report that's focused on numbers. There's other ways that we can get information from you all about what you're doing that helps us tell the story of our broader impact as a network, of our collective impact. And so how can we step more into that space? And I think for us, it's like for national office, it's how do we reframe our chapter reporting? And for you all, I think it gives you a chance to focus more on the relationships and on, that human-centered, community-centered focus of the work that you're doing. So it's hard. I found this a fun challenge of like taking a look at all the goals and how I could get them into 3 sort of pillars. But if you can only take away 3 things from network engagement, we've got our ABCs. We've got activate, build, and celebrate. So really looking forward to being able to take more of this work on in my role, and yeah, the year to come. Super excited about it. So thanks. Mara, I will kick it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Dan and I have been really enjoying collaborating on the network and programs goals. We spent a decent portion of yesterday talking through our visions and our hopes and our dreams. So I'm hoping that the passion and the commitment is coming through in our discussions here. I have 3 goals distilled for you as well. And you've heard me talk a lot about it during the Leaders Summit, but one of my main focus points this year is to create a unifying theme for the entire network to engage around. This is something Stephen Satterfield also pointed out during the keynote address at the beginning of the whole Leader Summit was, if we can have a cohesive theme as a community to rally around, then we can work together towards a common goal. And so that was my impetus for coming up with the Plant a Seed campaign being a year-long campaign that we can all engage with throughout all of the different working groups, all the different programs that we have. And those are all under my purview. So like whether you're Slow Books or your School Gardens or your Slow Beans or any of the other important programs like Snail Approval and Arc of Taste committees, those fall under my purview. So I wanted to create a unifying theme that we could all rally around and hopefully have there be cross engagement between all of the groups. I would love to have the Cooks Alliance be engaging with the Slow Books folks and the Slow Food Youth Network engaging with the School Gardens, et cetera, et cetera. And there's just infinite ways that we can connect with each other. And I'm hoping that this year, the Plant a Seed campaign will really, using that focal point of beans, can help center the 3 pillars that we've been talking about as Slow Food really wants to try to educate about and rally around, which is the climate resiliency, health and nutrient density, and the issues around food justice. And I think beans can really do that. So that's my unifying theme, number 1 as a goal. Number 2, I want to really work hard to help us be inspired. Inspiration is derived from the way food can nourish people on the planet. So I'm hoping through the programming this year, you'll be inspired by all the nourishment that we can get from this theme. I'm going to focus on programming using beans centered on health in a lot of regards. Brian and I are working together to come up with some Slow Food live sessions exploring how beans teach us about climate and nutrition. We've talked a lot about with the Plant a Seed campaign, these bean feeds and bean suppers across the regions, hopefully in accordance with the Cooks Alliance and also the regional chapters. If you're interested in hosting a bean supper or a bean feed in your region, connect with me and I will connect you to Cooks Alliance folks, and then we'll connect to the Slow Food Youth Network, and we'll connect to the gardens. We'll figure out how to use all of the levels of slow food to talk about nutrition at those suppers as well. And then I would like to have the Cooks Alliance at least 6 bean recipes shared throughout the year. I bet we'll have a lot more than that because there's a lot of bean enthusiasm. So inspiration is a really big point of my programming arm here. And then for the third most important thing, in accordance with what Dan is going to talk about next with the IJ, through programming, we should be centering traditional knowledge and BIPOC communities with all of our programming. So to that end, half of the seeds chosen for Plant a Seed are centering BIPOC communities. So 3 of our seeds that are in the kit this year have very close ties to some of our Native American friends. And I'm working with the Slow Food Turtle Island Association to help bring those communities to the fore and start doing some of that storytelling Dan was talking about. My second point here is that programming grants will center BIPOC partners. We're already working with some of our Slow Food Turtle Island friends to talk in a grant with Organic Valley to talk about indigenizing organic certifications. So that's a really fun project and really interesting to me that we're bringing those folks into that conversation. And then I would love to have 3 collaborations focused on more diverse narratives with the community action teams. So let's collaborate, as I was mentioning earlier. And these beans are going to get us there, folks, whether it's at a bean supper or with some storytelling or specific projects that you have in mind that you want me to help support. These are my goals for programming this year. And I'd love to continue to talk with you about it as we move forward through the year.
Thanks, Mara and Dan. I'm going to turn off my sharing for a second as we transition, but I want to reiterate like how incredibly collaborative this staff team is. This is one of the most collaborative staffs I've ever worked on, under the leadership of Anna. So I would very much throw out there for volunteer leaders, like, please engage. Like the staff is ready and willing. And I think that if we err on the side of one side, we err on the side of just collaborating too much, if that's ever a thing. It's like we really, really want to hear from volunteer leaders. And so with that said, I'm going to share a Jamboard at this point. So after hearing from Dan and Mara, the Jamboard, just hit the sticky note function and put a sticky note of what you're excited about. And while we do that, if you want to just unmute and ask a question or shout out what you're excited about, about what you just heard about network and programming. So let me make good on that. And you guys can start unmuting now if you would like. And we can start talking about it. And let me share this Jamboard with y'all real quick. And here is the link into the chat. If you, once I find my chat function somewhere, where'd it go? There it is. Here we go. I'm actually hearing that there's actually an EIJ slide too, right, Dan? And
yeah, and I was just thinking, is it too much to do programs? I'm gonna do something.
Yeah, let's jam about that in a second.
Yeah,
we've got a lot of info.
that in a second. Yeah, I think it could be too much info anyway. So this is great, and we'll just jam about EIJ later.
Yeah, so we're gonna jam on this Jamboard. Let me share my screen so people can see what's happening on the jam. You can see it too if you just follow that link. And like I said, please unmute while you do this, while you're thinking. You don't have to raise your hand. Like, this is a friendly environment. Please unmute and shout out any questions you have about what you just heard, or shout out what you're excited about. Love to hear from you. And if you haven't used Jamboard before, on the very left hand, you'll see a little tool. And it's like right below that circle and arrow, the fourth icon down is a sticky note icon. Click on that and you'll be able to put a sticky note there about and let us know what you're excited about, what you want to engage with the national office, on, or what you want from us. Like if you're like, yes, Dan, like what I heard from you, I want more of that. Or yes, Mara, more beans, like, please let us know. And please shout it out if you would like.
Or type it in the chat and we can get it over to the Jamboard as well. So
exactly. If Jamboard's just like, this is not my jam, no pun intended, because I can't be as punny as Mara, but just put it in the chat and we'll put it in Jamboard for you. But if we take a pause, if there's nothing, if we want to like ruminate on this, we can move on to EIJ, but I want to give a minute for anyone who wants to shout out anything they're excited about, any questions, clarifications.
We've got a lot of
the Beans message
in here.
Beans came through loud and clear.
Yeah. I'm sure we can help a lot with Beans. We're also excited about the regional counselor role. Just as a PSA, by the way, too, we do need to ratify our national statute, and that's just going to be, we're going to email you. This is going to be a really quick link being like, here's the revisions, yes or no. But with that regional counselor role is very much, we are recruiting. That's my PSA, I guess, really quickly. Anyone, any leader here, any leader who has a passion or want or interest in thinking about slow food as a region, and how to like knit people together as a region, how to get chapters together, how to get, national programs to like kind of engage in your region. We are actively recruiting counselors, and these will kind of be our network weavers, like people who'll be weaving, how chapters can be working together and that kind of thing. So we're also very excited for that.
I see a question here on networking. Can you talk more about access points? This is a broad area. That is sort of what Felix is just alluding to, like with the counselors, like how can our counselors be, it's multi-layered, right? It's about better articulating the role of the counselors, right? And a lot of, I think many governors were already functioning, already sort of in this counselor capacity. So transitioning the title as well as some of that, the relationship we're trying to create. I think the new national statute is really focused on like what relationship counselors have with the network versus governance or sort of that more hierarchical structure that seems to exist a bit underneath the governor role. So the access points are facilitated somewhat through counselors being more clear on what their role is and how they can plug in. It also comes with redefining sort of the regions and getting out. I like the way Ian McFall and I talk about this a little bit. Is like looking at a map and getting out our eraser and like erasing some of these lines and these borders, right? That's also a practice of decolonization. So there's there's an EIJ element to that as well. And trying to build some of those tools that I talked about in like the building tool section of the network to be able to better just articulate and express the complex web that is our network, so that somebody doesn't need to know somebody to get onto a certain committee or connected to a certain action team, right? Like there is perhaps a map on our website that tells you where everybody is and what they're working on. There are these how-to guides that, you know, not how-to guides, but there's the chapter portal that is allowing you to kind of see what's going on in other chapters. So when we're talking about access points, I think we're actually I think the point is to actually make it broader, because I think sometimes right now it's very much, there's a lot of word of mouth happening for where to go for certain information and how to connect and plug in. And I think some of the access points is like, how do we institutionalize that information? That way it's accessible to more people via the website, via the chapter portal, via some of these other tools that we're building. So the idea is to make it, is to actually be broader in that sense. So I hope I'm responding to that comment. And if not, happy to dig into it some more, because I think it's a good question. And also part of a broader transition as well.
Thanks, Dan. Does anyone want to shout out their comment? There's some many good ones in there, or any further clarifications? Because if not, I want to give enough time for EIJ and marketing and comms to talk too. But anyone, before we move on to EIJ, want to re-emphasize their comment or ask any questions about network and programming?
Hi, I'm Rachel Stewart, over out of the Phoenix chapter,
Hi,
and
Rachel.
to say thank you for this conference, you guys, and Felix. And I'm really excited about the regional weaver position you keep talking about. You know, all I do is talk to farmers and ranchers and food systems. And as I'm growing, I'm having to speak with more local governments. And slow food is always coming up. You know, slow food is really important. And you guys are really instrumental for the small producer. And niche markets, niche foods. And I'm really happy and proud to support the mission and all of the various facets that you guys are in. So thank you guys for that.
Thank you, Rachel. I really appreciate that. And of course, you know, if something comes up, we can bring it up. Just because we moved on to EIJ doesn't mean you can't just bring up a point about network and programming. Just shout it out as it comes to mind. But with that said, I'm going to share my screen again and have Dan present EIJ. So here we go.
Awesome. I'm really enjoying this conversation because I already know a lot of this, but it's still exciting to hear, and it's exciting to get feedback from you all. So EIJ, there's been a lot going on with EIJ, I think partly due to the fact that this role, the EIJ strategist role, was created about 5-6 months ago. So I've been able to come in and do a lot of the things that we're sort of swirling around you know, we need sort of this like unified vision. We need to know who is all out in the network and how to engage them. We need to know what the network is saying about our impact and visibility in the community, how we're engaging them. And so it's been great to be able to use this role to kind of grab all of those things that were floating around kind of in the network and put them into a process that has tangible outcomes that we can use as a national office and as a network to further our work for good, clean, and fair food for all. So the first goal is really around that, you know, designing organizational strategies for social change. When we think about social change work, there's layers to that. There's the micro level, which is interpersonal, in between individuals and people. There's that meso in between level, that is that organizational and group and community piece. And then there's that macro level, which really comes down to like systems, policy. And Slow Food is such a beautiful organization, and so many of you are so involved because we work at all of those different levels. And maybe one of those levels that needed a bit more of attention was that meso level, that organizational level. So how do we adapt our organization to maximize its social change externally while also allowing for the necessary restructuring, reorganizing, and strategy internally for that external growth to happen? The soil has to be healthy, the seeds have to be, you know, the right seeds, all of that ecosystem working together. So a big part of this, and as you've heard through the summit, is establishing the theory of change. This will be a year-long process. We're in that first process of stakeholder engagement. So conducting, I'll talk about a little bit about it in the second piece, but essentially putting together our theory of change, which is what it sounds like, right? Our theory, our ideas, our strategies, our goals for a particular change or an outcome that we want to see. Good, clean, and fair food for all can be big and sort of like behemoth. How do we break that down? And break that down into not only long-term change of maybe what we want to see happen over the next 10 years, but also some intermediate steps that we'll know we're making progress along the way. Another piece of this organizational strategy for social change is really identifying our role in the social change ecosystem. Some of you that I've done EIJ outreach to your chapters, you have this activity and you've been working on it. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback. It's something that National Office will also be taking on, is like, what are the different roles within the social change ecosystem and how do they all work together? So that when we keep talking about the regional counselor and sort of them acting as a weaver, that language and framing actually comes from roles in a social change ecosystem. That's Deepa Ayer and building movements and her piece that we have been using and will continue to use to kind of frame the social change ecosystem and what the roles are. So really getting clear on that, and also being comfortable with maybe how that shifts and changes as the needs for you all as our network change, and also as we make progress towards those longer term goals as well. And the third piece here is continuing down a cascade of strategic choices. So all of the things that we're working on actually fall into a model for strategic planning. And the idea of a cascade of strategic choices is really that we start with a theory of change and we cascade into figuring out what role we're going to play, what capabilities we need, and what success will look like. So the theory of change should articulate the next maybe decade of what we view could potentially happen within the next 10 years. The strategic plan, which will follow this year of theory of change planning, will take us maybe through 3 to 5 of those years. And then the operational planning is something that's done each year, which is what we're sharing with you all today, right? How do we operationalize our theory of change? And what does that look like for you all? So that's the model that we use. That's the model that we've been using to sort of guide our strategic initiatives. The second goal is really to just explore the network in general. So a big piece of this has been like mapping what I've been calling the slow food multiverse, right? So we have all of these different people in all these different areas. We have the different community action teams and counselors and all these folks that make up the network. Can we actually map that and create a visual component that allows us to better like literally connect the dots and view our network as the web that it is? And so that's really given us as National Office the time as staff to come together and, you know, talk about who's there. I need to move a little bit faster, I think. So I'm gonna speed it up a bit. I've already talked a little bit about stakeholder engagement. That's happening right now. Keep your eyes out for surveys and other opportunities to participate in focus groups. That info will go to inform the theory of change. There's a piece in here about embracing conflict as part of our process. Conflict is natural. If we learn to embrace it, we can learn to solve a lot of the challenges that we're facing, and also maybe recognize that some things aren't meant to be solved. Some things are meant to be experienced, and there's a lot we can learn in that. And then the third piece here is to really facilitate dynamic experiences for network leadership. So this is where we get to the BPOC community of practice. That's something that's going to need to be cultivated over a longer period of time. We're hoping to launch our white anti-racist affinity group this year, which I'm super excited about. And really it's, you know, just talking about how can we support you all through direct education as well as bridge building. If we don't do something here as Slow Food USA, can we point you in the right direction of where that work is being done and sort of build those bridges between our network and other networks who are doing good work? So hopefully I'm speeding it up enough. Do we have time to get into the jam, or do we need to move into the next segment? I'll just do some transparent communication with my fellow facilitators here.
No, let's jam. Like, this is really important. I just sent a message out that we might end 10 minutes over, and I'll get this jam board started. And Shirley, like, you have a question already, or a comment. So Shirley, please.
Shirley, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. I have been involved in several reorganizations and changes in processes in my 32 years of employment. So my question is, people do reorganizations and changes in two ways. They either go in there and all of a sudden they tell a department or an organization, these are the changes that we're going to do, and it starts in a week, and deal with it. The other method is that you involve the stakeholders and you bring in their ideas and their input and have a reorganization that everybody understands from the very beginning. My question is, how will you be involving the chapters in all the decisions that you're making about the changes that you're going to do? And I appreciate that you're doing this right now through the jam board and questions and being involved in some of the discussion. But what's your process? What's your path? You know, how are you going to do this that directly involves the organization, or the people that are out there in the chapters?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I would say it's certainly, this Leader Summit has given us a really great opportunity to try again. Something in the machine was talking to me. This Leader Summit has been a really great opportunity for us as national office to invite you all into the conversation. So I would argue that there really aren't a lot of decisions being made where we are not enlisting the help of the network in getting us there. When it came to the National Statute revisions, we had different leaders from the network a part of those National Statute revisions, really creating this like super inclusive and intentional and thoughtful process for how we were going to basically alter the National Statute. When it comes to the theory of change, that is purely made off of this feedback that we get from you all through the stakeholder engagement, through those surveys, through the focus groups, through the interviews. And the theory of change, and maybe I'll dig up the Cascade of strategic choices so that you can spend a little bit more time with it. But the theory of change then, out of all that input that we get from you all as stakeholders, then goes into that strategic plan, which will also involve another round of stakeholder engagement. So what we're really trying to do is right now set up those, again, access points for you all as leaders to plug in to what's happening at national office. And what we really are doing is reflecting or responding rather to what we hear from you all. What we hear from you all is actually a pretty, I don't know, I feel like Felix and Mara and myself are constantly coming back to Anna and Brian and the rest of the team with, hey, this is what we're hearing from the network. I had a conversation with Ashley from Slow Food Prescott, and this is what she told me was going on in the chapter and maybe what could support her. I had a chat with Erin from DFW. This is what we heard and how maybe we can build a strategy or a larger, broader goal around it. So really, you know, that to me is how we as a national office really begin to embody that EIJ, right? EIJ isn't something that we can just sprinkle in at the end. It really does have to be baked in all throughout. And so what we're trying to do right now with National Statute revision, with Leader Summit, with the reshaping of the counselor role and reimagining of sort of these regions, is create the mechanisms to keep that feedback coming and also create more of a circular loop. There's a lot coming in right now to national office. We get a lot of requests. There's a lot of things that we're trying to manage. What we also want you all to know, and the whole reason that we've moved into this like decentralizing framework is you all, it's not Slow Food USA up here and all the chapters down here. It's Slow Food USA over here and the chapters here and the action teams here and other leaders here and members here. And it's actually more of a web. And it takes a minute to get that organized so that we can be better ready to receive the feedback that you're giving us. You've always been giving us feedback. It's just, have we been able to incorporate that into a strategy? So I think that's really what we're trying to get at through this theory of change process with the cascade of strategic choices, is better utilizing a lot of what you all have already been giving us. And also letting you all know how we're incorporating what you've been giving us. That it's not just, doesn't just go off, you know, it doesn't just get logged in like a Google Doc or like a Salesforce record and die, right? Like, we treat all of the interactions that we have with each of you as really vital input and information that we can use to inform what we're doing. So I would say we've already begun a pretty inclusive process that, you know, allows us to, you know, to me, this network is a mosaic and each of you are a piece of that mosaic. What is that picture that we're trying to paint is really, I think, the guidance that national office is trying to provide, and not this is where we're headed. So I don't know if I made too many analogies or took too roundabout way of getting there, but I hope that does respond to your question and sort of tease you up. And I see Anna would like to add.
Thank you, Dan, for that answer. I wanted to kick it back to Shirley actually and ask you, like, this is what we're trying to do. And from your perspective, and I see Carol's chat here, how does it feel from your perspective? And do you have any recommendations for how we can make it feel more inclusive to you?
I think conversations are good. I think it opens up the channels to have people let you know what it's like out in the chapters. Although there's probably a lot of people that already know that since they've been in slow food chapters. It's such a large organization and so spread out that there doesn't seem to be any intimacy and any, and certainly COVID we've had a problem with that because we have to do everything virtual, but I don't see, I don't know how to describe this. When I have done reorganizations in an HR department, and it was a lot different. I agree, because we were in an area that wasn't that big, and all our employees took part in these changes. But I appreciate that you're letting people know what's going to happen, what's coming. But I don't think that people, even with their one-liners or their 2 sentences, really have enough input into, there's so much that you covered in this summit. And I think y'all really did a good job. The presenters were good. But I think that there wasn't enough specificity. There wasn't enough individual input. And I think somehow it would be nice if we could figure out a way where somebody chose an area and worked with that group that's doing this. And if you had several chapters from different parts of the country working on this specific area, that you would have more of chapter input than what you have now. I'm new to this. It is my just my opinion. I could be totally off the rail here, but that's the way I see it right now.
Thanks, Shirley. I really appreciate that feedback. I wanted to kick it over to Carol too. I don't know if you want to chime in on this question too, of how it feels from the chapter leader perspective.
I think that, here I am. I don't know, it just feels like I think this leader session was one of the best ones that I've attended. I think it feels like there's a bit more communication out there. But I think just sometimes in the past, we just are caught off guard, or we're kind of surprised by some of the decisions, and we wonder, like, did they even reach out to chapters? Or maybe they're reaching out to certain chapters on the East Coast, but up over here, on the West Coast, no one's really, talking about things. So I think it's just kind of a general feeling that sometimes we're taken aback by some of the decisions. But like I said, I think this leader session was really good in opening up communication. And so hopefully that will continue.
Could you, Shirley, I know you feel a bit newer. Carol, this question is also for you, the two of you. Can you give some specific examples of like when Slow Food made a decision that then was announced to the chapters, and it was kind of like the record scratched a little bit? You were like, wait a minute. I think that would be really helpful. I got some really helpful feedback from Karen yesterday that with all the changes and centering of EIJ that happened in this last year, when their chapter couldn't really engage around that, they felt really left behind when it came to the EIJ, the strategy, the action items, sort of this new framework that we're rolling out. So can either of you give some specific examples of what those times were where there was just a question mark? I think that'll be really helpful feedback for us as we think about, as we build this together, because this is exactly what we're talking about, right? Is with this feedback, we can course correct and incorporate. Without the feedback, we do just get information from the chapters who have the time or availability or are already plugged in a number of other ways to give us info. It's not an exclusionary process of like, oh, we're only going to go here for info. A lot of times it just comes down to, as a volunteer network, who had the time to get back to us, who could respond to an email or pick up the phone or send, come to a virtual event and talk about it. So we also recognize that some of these challenges come just from the nature of a volunteer network, but we'd love to hear from all of you as our volunteers. What were some of those specific instances?
I think that, well, one of them more recently, although Felix has done a great job, was snail of approval going nationally. I mean, basically, even though we were included in the end, and I think we kind of pushed to be included too, we were just told, even though all these chapters already had the program, okay, we're going national, and this is what we're going to do. And so someone that's been involved in that program, you're like, oh, okay. And so we kind of pushed to make sure we were involved and had our say, but it kind of was just put out there. And I think a couple of years ago too, for another kind of example, not that we had much say on that either, but I think we were taken aback a few years ago when USA decided not to participate in Terra Madre. And as a chapter who'd been kind of really into that and stuff, we were like, did they talk to anyone? Did they see if people wanted to get involved more from the chapters to try and make it happen? But it was just, we're not doing it. So those are just a couple of the little examples.
I have an example. It's Kathy from Sonoma County North also. When we were doing the snail of approval early on, and we've been doing it for we started 2017 to actually do the work, there was such a big confusion between Chefs Alliance and snail of approval. And a lot of our chefs already thought they had the snail. And that was really confusing. And then we learned there was already a book out there that people already had a snail that, that came forward from, the national office, which is older now, and we've seen the book, and some of our restaurants were in it. But just those, I think Carol's exactly right, just the bridge between where we were and where we are and how we got there, to let people know, because it's kind of embarrassing when you're going out in the community and they're like, one of our Michelin star restaurants told us we already have the snail. We're already in it. And we're like, what? How did we miss that? And it turned out it was more of a Chefs Alliance participation, but they didn't even understand the difference.
This is really good feedback, and this makes a lot of sense. I am actually going to put something forth that Shirley, you inspired me to think about, which was, in the end, like you said, we have some great discussions, and we have some great intentions. This is like an intention setting, session. But the proof is in the pudding, as they say, right? The proof is in what happens next. And I have so much confidence in the team that I will still be part of for another 32 hours. I'm outgoing, right? So I have nothing to protect here. I would tell you this: I have so much confidence in the staff that the acts of collaboration and creating access points is really real, and there'll be numerous coming up. But we're going to make mistakes. We're not going to reach out enough. Just like Carol said, I tried to reach out to as many chapters for snail, but people still felt like they weren't part of the process. So we will make mistakes, but the proof is in the pudding, right? We have this intention, but I have so much confidence in this staff and in this network that we just have to do it together, and we can say anything we want, but we're going to look back after this year and say, did it work? But I think it will. I really, really, really do. With that said, I don't want to cut this short. Again, please keep commenting on whatever comes to mind. But this is a very good, as we say, we're going to take about 15 minutes over the hour. You have to leave. I'm sorry that we're going a little long, because what's really important also, just last piece, because it's all connected, right? This is all connected. Brian runs communications for our team. And it's not just marketing, but we want to market to the outside world. What's the great things happening with slow food? But it's also how we communicate ourselves and how we connect with each other. Because
Felix, we're losing you a bit.
I'm frozen, aren't I?
Yeah.
Maybe this is a good time for me to jump in, and I can start to share my screen and connect with you a little bit about the work that I and my colleague Michelle, who's our part-time communications coordinator, are planning to do in 2022 to really connect with all of you and connect with the message of Slow Food, which is the pursuit of good, clean, and fair food for all. We have many goals for our team, and our team is really interesting because we're in many ways an administrative function to Slow Food USA, and that we're supporting the network and growing the brand and growing the message through supporting our colleagues, through supporting Dan and Felix and Mara and Anna in all that they're doing. But we're also a program in and of ourselves in many ways. We are a storytelling hub. We are lighting and carrying the torch of excitement and inspiration that is what's bringing new people to the slow food movement and reigniting folks who have been here for 5 months or 5 years. So I picked 3 goals that I think are really relevant to this conversation in particular of what are we doing to create connection and collaboration across the network. And I'm going to work my way up from the bottom to the top. Since August, I have been leading a monthly gathering and ongoing Slack channel called the Slow Food Creative Collective, which is a hub for marketers and communicators across the Slow Food network, from our community action teams and our chapters, just so we have a space to learn from each other and to really sharpen our communication skills across all of our volunteer entities in Slow Food. So we've had, I think, 6 meetings now, which have been attended from anywhere between 2 and 10 to 12 people, where we really, I think this is one of those spaces that we're able to exchange some ideas and best practices and really hear from each other. And so in 2022, we're going to have 10 of those meetings of folks who are those communications and marketing chairs. We would love for someone from your chapter or for you to join that. If you're interested, just email me at comms@slowfoodusa.org, and I will include you in our upcoming messaging, and including a meeting in February where we're going to talk about strategies for growing your board, because we heard that that was a real issue that chapters were facing. So yeah, that's one way that we're creating space for folks to collaborate, come together, share, and build together. Number 2 is a resource. We've been talking a lot about resources for chapters. The Framework for Cultural Exchange is going to be a living document that offers guidance on building meaningful relationships that can lead to exciting collaborations like community partnerships, co-produced events, and since I'm wearing that marketing and comms hat, content for maybe your blog or your newsletter, or for a local newspaper outlet. So that framework is a collaboratively built tool that we'll be continuing to work on in Q1 and Q2 of 2022. We're going to be picking up some of the work we started in the very first session of this Leader Summit way back on the 20th of January, where we got together and did some storytelling with one another. We're going to carry that work on into March, so stay tuned for more information about that. And finally, and I'll leave us with the first goal that I put on the list, amplifying voices and stories from across the Slow Food USA network. We're setting an ambitious goal of amplifying 50 voices through our blog and through our Slow Food Live events, and through other exciting interactive ways of connecting with our audiences in 2022. We're also going to make sure that at least half of those voices that we're hearing from, that we're creating a platform for, are folks who identify as Black, Indigenous, and people of color, because we know that's critically important to create that space and to learn and exchange and grow together as a network. We're also really committed to sharing what's going on from our 100+ chapters. So at least 12 chapter stories are going to be published in 2022. And we'll make sure that at least 6 of those are in the annual report, which is going to come out in June of 2022 this year. So those are just 3 of a number of goals that Michelle and I and the Slow Food USA team are prioritizing around marketing and comms this year. But we're a nimble team. So, if we have other ideas, initiatives that come out from the network, we want to support those.
Thanks, Brian. And sorry about that. I am now sitting next to the router. So we're about to wrap up. And please include right now, please unmute and shout out any questions you have for Brian, or any questions that came up for this entire session, or comments. Happy to wrap up on that. After we have a moment of that, we'll have some last words of this session from our fearless leader, Anna, to kind of send us off into 2022. But before we wrap up, is there anything, comments, praise, celebration, questions about what Brian just presented, or anything that has come up in this session? Well, if anything does come up, I'm sure Anna will not be disturbed if you want to raise your hand and say something during her comments. But I want to say one last from me. Again, thank you so much for inviting me and welcoming me into this network. I hope that my service to you outnumbered my mistakes, because we were going to do it. But it was amazing. I can't wait to join a local chapter and do snail approval through a local chapter and all that other stuff. So again, if anything comes up, put in the chat. I'm sure Anna won't mind to like have someone raise their hand real quick, but I'm gonna hand the mic off to Anna to send us off into 2022.
Thank you, Felix. We're going to send you all the bean tons and beans so that you can continue to feel part of Slow Food. But I would love, Felix, this is your last day is tomorrow. I would love to, if everyone could just put a shout out to Felix. Felix, like, you've been a big part of this team. You started in January 2020 when we still had an office in Brooklyn. And you've been through a lot with us. So I really appreciate your guidance and vision for leading the network throughout these crazy years of COVID. It's really meant a lot to have you on the team here. So thank you, and we will definitely keep in touch. Yeah, I just wanted to wrap up and say thank you to everyone who's been part of this Leader Summit. It's been really nice to see a lot of repeat faces and really get to know you throughout these sessions. I have so much respect for all of you who put your heart and soul into Slow Food, and I am here for hearing all the problems that we have as well as the solutions and how we can really build relationships and knit this network ever tighter together. A network is a different kind of being than a traditional nonprofit. And I think we need to learn how to be a network with one another, how to connect with each other, how to lift one another up, how to be there for each other and get out of our little bubbles. I think sometimes, like Mara was alluding to, it's easy to stay in the little bubble, whether that little bubble is like the national office for me, or your bubble is the Arc of Days committee, or your bubble is the chapter that you're part of. So I really hope that this Leader Summit is a way to kick off more intra-network communications and relationship building, whether that's through Beans or through a BIPOC group or other ways that we really connect with each other. And hopefully, as COVID lightens up, we'll be able to meet in person again. I think there's a lot of bonding that can happen through just really actually sharing a meal together that can't happen on Zoom. So hopefully we'll get back to that soon. But last shout out to my staff, Felix, of course, but also Brian, Mara, Dan, Aaron, and Michelle. You all have done an amazing job with this Leader Summit. I just wanted to thank you for the time, the weekend time, the evening time, all the extra time and love and care that you put into this summit. I'm grateful for you being on the team. Wanted to give a shout out to my board here too. I've seen Julie and Bilal, especially in a bunch of sessions. And yeah, thank you all for joining us. I think we will wrap it up for today, wrap it up for this Sunday. I hear a football game starting in the other room. I'm not sure if you all are watching the game today, but thank you so much. I hope you go enjoy some beans tonight and stay warm if you're like me and have a bunch of snow outside. So why don't you unmute and say a big Slow Food goodbye, then we'll see you soon.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye,
Bye,
friends.
everyone.
Thank you, goodbye.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.